Hey everyone, welcome to the weekly live. This week we will be doing a Hatha Yoga practice together. So usually when we do these, most of the time they're kind of like diving into something a little more deeply, but I thought that this would be a good opportunity to, if you want to kind of turn off the part of your brain that has been analyzing sequences and has been studying a lot and just enjoy a practice, you can do that. Or you could look at this as an opportunity to analyze the sequence and to think about the cueing, things you liked, things you didn't like, those sorts of things. So totally up to you how you want to use this session, but both possibilities are there. Right off the bat, I would suggest maybe a block or two. 2 blocks is ideal, but if you only have one, then no problem. And just to put it at the top of your mat. And then settle into a comfortable seated position. So I really like kneeling. You might like kneeling, or you might prefer to sit cross-legged, or to maybe have your legs out wide in kind of a V shape. You could sit up on a prop. So sitting up on the edge of maybe your chip foam block or your yoga block might be really helpful, especially if you're sitting cross-legged. This can be a nice way to position the body. And then rest your hands on your thighs and just start to close your eyes. See if you can feel that rooted quality of your sit bones, the lengthening up through your spine and the softening of your shoulders and the muscles around your eyes. So we'll start our short Hatha practice today by just checking in, noticing how we're feeling. Maybe you've really had a week, and this is the first opportunity this week to check in, to ask yourself what it is that you're feeling, what's the state of your mind, what are the different sensations in your body. And just letting all of those things just be exactly as they are. And then when you're ready, begin to see what it's like to slowly focus on your breath a little more. To start to notice different details of your breath. Maybe the sensations of breath, or the pace, the rhythm. If you find that you get super distracted as you do this, which is so normal, come back and just notice that breath again. Just be really, really curious about breathing. Just here for a few more moments, checking in, settling, breathing. And now begin to expand that awareness out from the breath to feel different parts of your body. Maybe you start to notice where there's pockets of sensation, like shoulders, legs, neck. And in a way that feels very natural for you, start to gently move and awaken your body. So I love to roll my shoulders a couple of times. This just feels really, really nice. And you might move your head side to side, do any manner of things that help you to sort of get into your body, to begin to connect to your body this morning. You'll notice that we have a little guest star of Diego who's just settled behind me on the mat. So we might have to move him out the way at some point for this practice, but he'll be around. If you need to change the position of your leg at any moment, if you want to cross them the other way or maybe give them a stretch just to sort of release them, you could definitely do that. Feels nice, especially if you've not moved very much today so far. And then we'll just do one more thing seated before we start changing the position of the body. So we'll come into a side stretch. We'll take the left fingers out to the left. You could tent those left fingers or just have the hand flat or place it on your block. We'll inhale, stretch the right arm up. And as you exhale, begin leaning over to the left, just as much as makes sense for you this morning. Notice if your right hip starts to kind of lift up off the mat, and see if you can anchor that right hip down. And then reach through the right fingertips so you really feel that space opening up in the body. We'll take a deep breath in together. And then on the exhale, come back through center. We'll switch, so we'll bring the right fingers or the right hand off to the right or on a block. We'll inhale, lengthen the left arm up, and exhale, leaning over to the right. And that anchoring of both sit bones here, so keep that left sit bone really strong and connected. And then as you root that sit bone down, really reach through the left fingers like there's just a little bit more space here. Take a deep inhale breath. And then exhale, come back to center, release the arm, maybe give the shoulders a roll up, back, and down. We'll make our way into tabletop position. So you could unwind your legs and swing the legs out to one side or roll over those crossed legs. I'll just move Diego a little bit here, who's like right in the center of my mat. And we'll come into a nice, steady, stable tabletop position. So bring the wrists under your shoulders. Have your knees sort of under your hips. Diego, you have to move a bit. Toes can be tucked or feet flat. Now in this tabletop position, draw the belly up and in and reach the crown of your head forward and press through the pads of your fingers like you're gripping your mat a little bit here. And just notice what it feels like, what the stability and the strength feel like here. From this position, we'll begin to flow through cat-cow. So as you inhale, lower the belly a little, open the chest. You might take the eyes forward or up a little higher. And then exhale to round your spine, press the mat away so you're arching like an angry cat. Inhale as you start to lower the belly a little, widen the collarbones, eyes forward or up. And then exhale to round. Press the mat away. We'll do this a couple more times. Inhale, lowering the belly, opening the chest into cow shape. And then exhaling into your cat shape. Two more. Inhale into your cow shape, belly lowers, chest opens. Keep connecting the fingers down into the earth. Exhale as you round. And last one. Inhale, lower the belly, open the chest, look forward or up into cow. And then exhale as you round the spine, press the mat away. Come back to your tabletop position, back to a neutral tabletop position. Draw your belly up and in. So now we're really feeling that strengthening from center here. Press the pads of your fingers into your mat. Balancing cat pose. Start to extend and float the left leg straight back behind you, keeping your left heel sort of in line with your left hip. Setting the gaze just a little further forward in front of your mat. Option 1, keep both hands down. This is beautiful. Option 2 is to float the opposite arm forward. So right hand starts to reach forward towards the front space. And you might start to notice if you've got both the leg and the arm lifted, it's a little wobbly. Keep pressing down through the left fingers. Draw the belly up and in. Press through your left heel. Take a deep inhale breath. And then exhale, bring the hand, if lifted down, bring the knee back down. We'll switch right to the other side. So your right leg starts to extend straight back behind you. Heel sort of in line with your hip, pressing through the heel. You can stay here, both hands down on the mat. This is amazing. Or you might see what it's like on the side to reach the left fingers forward. It can get a little wobbly when we're balancing here, so really feel that strength from the center of your body as you reach forwards, as you reach backwards. Deep inhale breath. On the exhale, hand and knee back down to your mat. And we'll start to make our way into a downward facing dog. So shift your hands forward just a few inches on your mat. Spread the fingers lovely and wide. Press down through the pads of your fingers. Little micro bend in your elbows. Tuck your toes under and very slowly and mindfully start to lift your hips up and back to downward facing dog. Now some of you might step your feet back a little more for a little bit of a longer downward dog, or maybe your feet are in a little more for a shorter dog. A nice micro bend in those knees. Lift the hips up towards the ceiling and keep pressing down through your hands. So really feeling that strengthening and that awakening in your upper body. You could stay absolutely still in your downward dog or start to pedal out your feet a little bit. There's sometimes a really nice stretch for the calf muscles, nice for the legs. Let's take a full deep inhale breath, then a full exhale breath. From downward facing dog, we'll start to bring our knees back down to the mat, so coming to a tabletop position. This dog is not moving. Diego, you gonna move? No? Okay, no. I'm just gonna come further forward then, because he's in charge. So from tabletop position, pressing the fingers into the mat, keep the belly drawing up and in, and then we'll start to walk the knees back just a few inches till we come into a half plank. So your thighs start to come in a little bit of an angle. And as you do this, you might notice right away that the belly starts to engage a little more. This is lovely. Keep pressing down through the hands and just dome the upper back ever so slightly, like you're pushing yourself away like you did in that angry cat shape. Now option 1 is to stay here with the knees down. This is beautiful. Option 2 is to tuck the toes and lift the knees up away from the mat. So we've got a half plank position with knees down or a higher plank position with the knees up. They're both wonderful. In both versions of plank, really feeling that you're pressing the mat away just a little bit, and you might feel things starting to shake a little here, maybe the belly, the core, or I can definitely feel that in my shoulders today, in my arms. At any moment, your knees could come back down if you lifted them. Let's take another deep inhale breath. And then on the exhale, bring the knees down if you lifted them. And we'll send the hips back to child's pose. So toes together, knees wide. And then just let the hips settle to the heels. You might release and bring your hands on top of each other and let the head rest down, or keep the arms stretching out in front of you. Let's take 2 full rounds of breath. Slowly begin to bring yourself out of your child's pose. Come back to your tabletop position, so back to hands and knees. Wrists under shoulders. And we'll find half plank or plank again. So start by walking the knees back just a little so your thighs are on an angle. Belly engaged, pressing the mat away just a little bit so we really activate and feel the upper back and shoulders and arms. Knees can stay down, amazing. Toes can tuck, knees can come up, also amazing. At any moment, those knees can come back down onto your mat. Keep pressing through the pads of your fingers so you're really feeling that you have some quality of rootedness here through the hands, maybe even rooting through the toes to fire up that belly. Let's take a full deep inhale breath. And then on the exhale breath, back to your child's pose, so softening back into Balasana. Your hips towards your heels, hands stacked, head resting on your hands or your arms, lengthening out in front of you as you soften down. Just 2 breaths, 2 full, deep rounds of breathing here. Begin to roll yourself up from your child's pose, either coming to tabletop or downward facing dog. So you might stay on hands and knees, or you might tuck the toes and lift the knees up away from the mat into downward dog. Just taking a breath here in this shape. And from either tabletop or downward dog, start to look forward. If you're in downward dog, bend the knees a little more and take as many steps as you need to walk to a forward fold at around the top of your mat. So your feet about inner hip width apart. If you're not sure what that might be, a good guide is to take your 2 fists in between your feet, and if your feet are on either side of them, roughly around inner hip width. For some people, you might go wider or closer. You could take your block or your blocks and rest your hands on your block, especially if the backs of your legs are a little tight or if there's any tenderness in the low back. And have a nice kind of soft, easy bend in those knees, head relaxing. Even letting go of the shoulders if they're kind of bunching up towards the ears. Just see if you can release tension. Take one more full deep breath in. And from this Uttanasana, standing forward fold, we'll slowly ragdoll up to stand. Now if you have any tenderness in your low back or anywhere in your body here, you might use your hands to walk up your legs for extra support, or you might let the arms just rest and float in front of you. Press through the feet, draw the belly up and in, keep that nice soft bend in the knees, and slowly, slowly, slowly start to roll the body up to stand. So imagining kind of the articulations of your spine gently unfurling here. At any moment, your hands could come to your legs for support, the belly engaged, coming all the way up. And then once you are all the way up, the head lengthening up, loop the shoulders up back and settle them down. So we're standing on our mat in Tadasana, and we'll just take a moment here with the arms by your sides. Maybe close your eyes and just see if you can feel your feet on the mat, your feet on the earth. You might even sway a little side to side, forwards and backwards, so you can get centered, so you can feel stable and steady here. Opening your eyes if they're closed, walk your feet close together. Your feet may come close together, they may touch. Bring your hands to your hips and just notice that the sort of points of your pelvis are facing forward. We'll leave the right foot where it is, rise up onto the ball of the left foot, and then let the knee come out to the side whilst keeping your hips facing forward. So notice if, to kind of compensate for that left knee coming out, you sort of start to rotate the pelvis a little. It doesn't matter how far this knee comes out as far as it does in your body. Mine's more like a 30-degree angle. So the points of the hip facing forward. We're here, tree pose. You can stay here with the toes on the floor. It's amazing. Or you might slide that left foot up to the right shin. Or maybe today you might reach down and take that left foot and bring it above the knee into the upper right thigh. Hands on hips can be super helpful for stability, or maybe bring your hands together into Anjali Mudra. For balancing, it's helpful just to settle your eyes on one point in front of you, but also just know that kind of wobbling and moving is part of these shapes. It's super normal. So you can feel your right big toe pressing into the earth. Take a deep breath in. And then on the exhale breath, we'll release. We'll bring that left foot down. You might pick up your right leg and just move it around a bit. Move the ankle, the toes. And then we'll find this on the other side. So your hands on your hips, left foot stays, points of the hips facing forward, come up onto the ball of the right foot, and whilst your hips stay pointing forward, just see how far that right knee opens up. Any amount. Mine's super different side to side, a little less on this right side for me today. And I'm in tree, I could stay here, or I might bring the foot up to kind of around the shin, or I could reach down and bring it past the knee into the upper left thigh, but I like to keep my foot at my shin today. And then maybe hands stay at hips, or your hands come to your chest into Anjali Mudra. And it's always kind of helpful here just to let the movement happen as it happens. So instead of fighting it and sort of gripping and holding on, we're just allowing it to flow through us. Your eyes fixed on one point. The left big toe really rooting into the floor to help find a bit of strength and stability. And then deep inhale breath. And then exhale to release. Bring the foot down, the right foot down, and then maybe pick up your left leg and just give it a shake, a wiggle around. And we'll come back to Tadasana at the top of our mat with our feet just about in a hip width apart. And if you're using blocks today, have them at the top of your mat on their very highest height. So on their highest height there. We'll bring the hands to the hips. We'll leave the right foot where it is, and we'll step into a high lunge position. So we'll take the left toes towards the back of the mat into a high lunge. So you're tucking the left toes under. I had to step over Diego here, so maybe you have an easier step back than me. The points of your hips facing forward, just like we sort of played with in tree pose, and as deep of a bend in your right thigh as makes sense for you. So this is a nice, strong, stable awakening shape. I might keep my hands at my hips, or you could see maybe what it's like to float the arms up. And feeling all 10 toes pressing into the mat, your right heel rooting down. A deep breath in. On the exhale, if your arms are lifted, start to float them back down to the mat. So now we'll take a hold of our blocks for this next shape. We're not going to take a hold of the blocks yet, sorry. We'll use the blocks for the next shape. So we'll bring the hands to the chest and we'll start to lean forward a little. So you might call this a runner's type lunge. And then I'm going to take the tips of my fingers and very lightly just place them on those blocks. So I'm not sort of pushing the weight down, I'm just sort of barely touching them. And I might stay here. This might be my variation of Warrior 3 today. Or I might start to bring more weight into my right foot as I step my left foot in a little, and maybe the left foot starts to float up away from the mat as I lengthen my spine, or the toes can stay down, and keeping those fingertips on the blocks just super light. Almost like you could take them away and you wouldn't really notice a difference. So we're really encouraging the core, the standing leg all to help support us. So the blocks are just sort of secondary. Take a deep breath in. And on the exhale, coming into a forward fold. So bringing the left foot back to the top of your mat to meet the right, and have a nice deep bend in those knees. Softening down, relaxing down. And then we'll slowly ragdoll up to stand again. You can walk your hands up your thighs or keep the arms just nice and heavy out in front of you as you stack your spine, coming up to Tadasana, and a little nice roll of the shoulders up, back, and down. High lunge, other side, hands at your hips, left foot stays, step the right toes back. Just as much as makes sense for you, so we all might have a different length that we're stepping back here. Bending into that left thigh. And maybe your hands stay at your hips. Or maybe you start to reach your arms up, and it could be different side to side. Sometimes we need different things left to right. It's not always 100% identical. Pressing the toes into the earth, moving through your left heel. You might Notice that left hamstring fire up as you press through the left heel a little bit here. So awakening the body with strength and stability. Let's take a deep inhale breath. And then on the exhale, we'll float the hands to the chest. We'll begin to lean the upper body forward. And then as we reach, just very lightly for those blocks, we might stay here. This is beautiful. Or we might decide to bring more weight into our left leg as we think about floating the right leg up away from the mat. And again, the fingers on the blocks, the hands on the blocks, barely there, hardly there, just as a little extra support, just in case we need it today. But the majority of the work coming from the belly, coming from the standing leg. Let's take a lovely deep inhale breath. And on the exhale, back into our forward fold, so that right foot coming to the top of your mat. And really a nice generous bend in your knees here. Letting that upper body melt down. Shifting your blocks out to the sides, bend the knees even more. Place your hands on the mat and come into a child's pose position. So bring your knees down to the mat. Toes might touch or be apart a little, your knees wide, and then settle your hips back to your heels into a variation of child's pose that feels good for you at this moment. Maybe stacking hands to rest the head on, or stretching the arms out in front. Take a deep breath in. And a deep breath out. From this child's pose position, we'll start to roll ourselves up. And because this is a fairly short hatha class today, we'll start to make our way down onto our back. So lean to one side, swing your legs out in front of you, and scoot yourself to the top of your mat. Have your knees bent, your feet flat on your mat, and then start to bring the arms out in front of you. Feel that strength and stability in your belly. Take a deep breath in. And on the exhale, with a strong supportive core, start to roll yourself down. At any moment, you could bring your hands to your legs and walk down, or keep the arms floating out in front of you as you come all the way down onto the mat. I have to scooch forward to make space for Diego. Coming all the way down. And once you are down on your mat, your head resting down, hug the knees in towards your chest and rock side to side. Back and forth. You might even imagine you're rolling your knees on the ceiling just to have a lovely massage for that low back. And then from here, we'll slowly come into a Shavasana shape. So lengthening out your legs, letting the arms come down by your sides, maybe with the palms facing up, so it helps just to keep some opening in the chest. So wiggle around as much as you need to get super cozy and comfy here. And then start to close your eyes in Shavasana. Seeing what it's like to let the weight of your body just soften and settle down into the earth. And after focusing on movement, after focusing on breath, for the next few moments, gifting yourself some time to just be, to do nothing, to not have to focus, to not have to try, but to just let rest come as it may. You will probably think during this time, you'll imagine, you'll notice. This is all normal. Each time you realize you might be kind of lost in a loop of thinking. Just let the body soften, the mind settle, coming back to rest. If you're able, I invite you just to remain as you are in Shavasana. If it's important that you come to a seated position, you could very slowly and gently find your way to sit on your mat. And whichever shape you're in, just thanking yourself for taking a little time out of your day to move, to breathe, and for practicing self-care. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Namaste. Thanks everyone. If you're in Shavasana, just let yourself rest and stay there for a little longer if you're able. And thanks for joining me, and I'll see you all very, very soon. Bye.